Hello and welcome
To where?
Mental Recovery.
I like it. I like it.
I like it a lot.
I like it a lot. Welcome back. Another episode, another podcast, another time two friends are going to be talking.
Yep.
But this one we're going to get basically right into it as well. We hope everyone's having a great day and thank you for joining us again.
We appreciate you, especially if you're willing to listen to whatever we come up with for the next hour and so on.
True. All right. Today we are going to talk about family, siblings, just the household.
Yeah. The place you grew up.
Yeah.
Or who you grew up with, rather.
Exactly. So mine, I grew up with my mom and dad, my sister and my brother. Like I said before, my brother was 10 years older. My sister's basically a year and a half. My parents have been together for 20-something years. And then I mostly grew up with my grandparents when they were alive because they lived 2 houses next to us. So pretty easy to be with them. How big's your family?
My immediate family, the one that I live with, not that big. It's me, mom, dad, sister, older by a year and a couple months, and then grandpa, and then my other grandma and grandpa passed away, but we covered that already.
Yeah.
But for the immediate family, that's basically all that's here.
All right, well, let's talk about it. Let's talk about how they raised you.
Well, for raising, I would actually have to bring up the 2 that passed away because they were the ones that did most of my raised me the most.
Okay, well, let's talk about them.
Couple of wonderful people. In their later years, they ended up doing Mr. and Mrs. Claus, like I mentioned before. They would go to churches, schools, all that fun stuff. But when they were raising me, they always told me to just, as best I can, be who I want to be. But then again, it was mostly unsupervised activities.
Yeah.
Because, needless to say, the authorities were called over to my house numerous times. I was a very sciencey kid. I always grew up liking science and music and stuff like that. So I would always get in trouble by making basically explosives.
Okay, yeah, I got you there. I did the same thing.
Yeah, like I one of them was I took a road flare, emptied it out into a mason jar, and
yeah, I never did it in glass. I'm a little bit smarter than that.
I made a mistake on that one.
Yeah, just from you saying that, I know you did.
And fun fact, water doesn't put those out. I didn't know at the time, so I was just...
Oh, gosh.
It was in the glass. I lit it, and it started to get bigger and bigger, and I was like, oh no, this is getting out of hand. So I got the garden hose, and I sprayed it, and then the shock shattered the glass, and then it was just fire everywhere, and I was freaking out. Anyways,
let's bring this back in before you go on some crazy story.
That's for another time.
We're going to talk about mental stuff today.
Yeah. When they were raising me, they always told me to be a good person. That's why I grew up going through scouting, like Cub Scouts, Boy Scouts, Eagle Scouts, all that fun stuff. And the reason for that was because my grandpa was actually in scouting when he was younger. He didn't make it to Eagle like I did, but he raised me on based off of the Scout law, I believe it was. I mean, that's like 10 years ago now when I eagled out. But there's a lot of good things in there. Don't get me wrong. I can name them. If you mind if I name them? It'll be quick.
If you want to.
Yeah. The Scout law, as I knew it then, don't know if it's changed in 10 years, was a Scout is trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent. And those are the philosophies that he raised me on how, like, trustworthy, be trusting, help people out when they need it, loyal, be loyal friendships, 12 plus years strong here.
Yeah.
Help whenever we can. I mean, we were going to Best Buy the other day, and the lady fell, and you ran out of the car basically. And I have a full medical kit in the back of mine, and I was like, does she need anything? I've got gauze, I've got alcohol wipes, I've got all kinds of stuff.
No, we're just being good people, as you should be.
Being friendly. That one has kind of tapered off in the later years because of my job, but it's understandable in that case. Courteous. I always hold the door open. I never enter somebody's house without permission. You know that, and you've gotten on my case about that numerous times.
Yeah, but let's stay on this. So mentally speaking, from being raised from them.
Mentally, it was very sheltered. They didn't trust a lot of my friends because they would always think things would go missing, or every child that came over to the house was a delinquent. That wanted nothing but to steal something. Steal something, make marks on the house, make a mess, just cause chaos, effectively. Yeah. It did a number on me because I still have those fears today. I won't just invite a random person over to my house. I mean, whenever we go on OfferUp, it's always meeting at a safe location, but that just should be general knowledge everybody should know.
Yeah.
I don't regret how I was raised, but I do wish it was a little bit more open, because I wish I was able to be more sociable, be able to make friends wherever I go, because right now, you put me in a public situation, I am a wallflower. I hang out on the sides, I go to a bar, I'll sit at the bar and just sip my drink, and just, if I'm going with somebody, I'll talk with them, but as soon as they leave, I'm I'm silent.
Well, it's that, and like you're saying, it's you're not really a social butterfly, because of how you were raised as well. Yeah. But it's also hard for you to make conversation, from what I've seen, because it's just you didn't have that growing up. Yeah, you didn't have all these people coming over.
Personally, I don't think it's hard for me to make conversation. It's just the topics that I want to talk about, nobody's interested in.
Exactly, that's hard to make conversation.
Yeah,
because you're gonna have a conversation about something that only you know.
Well, I have a conversation about anything. I mean,
no, I know.
I'll try to.
I'm saying from experience being with you, I've seen it to where you bring something up and somebody's just like, okay.
Yeah, I'm mostly like D&D, computers, guns, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I'm not regretful of how they raised me, but I do wish they had changed it a little bit so I'm could be more sociable and more socially outgoing versus being an introverted shut-in that spends his weekends in his room on his computer or sitting in here and doing podcast.
Oh, you don't want to do this? Okay.
No, I absolutely want to do this. This is my outlet. This is me getting things off my chest.
No, I know.
This is me bringing my problems to right here so I can be like, okay, now I know I have to fix that.
Yeah. But you think them not having people over, or you not being able to have people over, put a toll on it?
Yeah. Because it wasn't only not letting people come over, it was also not letting me go out to somebody else's house.
Okay.
I had a curfew. Right after school, I live close to all of the schools that I went to. I went to elementary, junior high, and high school. He went to fundamental and high school. But my my elementary school is right down the street, like one or two blocks away.
Yeah, 2 blocks.
My junior high school is 3 doors down from my house, and my high school is about a mile away. But whenever I would go there, it would either be riding the bike in the early years, in the later years, skateboard, or driving myself. But I always had a curfew. It was always, they know when I get out, I have to be home at this time, and I can't bring anybody. And after that, I can't go out. It's come home, do homework, watch TV.
Do you think being older now, like when you get your own place and all that stuff, it's going to be stuck with you to a certain extent? Or do you think you're going to almost like rebel against it and just be like, I want people over?
I will definitely invite people over, but people that I trust. Yeah. So in a way, I'll still retain.
You'll still have the values that they gave you?
Yeah, I'll still have all of that. But as soon as I get to trusting someone like you, absolutely. Justin? Yeah, absolutely. Joey?
Sorry,
Joey. Once I get to know you better, maybe. But there's a small group. But I like small friend groups because it's more personable. Like, there's numerous other people that I would say yes to, but I just don't want to bring them up on the podcast and call them out by name. Because, I mean, we do it to Joey because Joey understands.
Yeah. Hopefully.
Yeah. If you don't, talk to me about it. Bring it up. I will tell you exactly. With no filter. Anyway, I will, in a sense, keep what they taught me, like, there, but I will rebel a little bit. I'll invite some people over, like game night for D&D, Cards Against Humanity, Monopoly, whatever we want to play.
Yeah.
Movie night, because why not? But yeah, I think that would probably be something I would do eventually once I get my own place, which will hopefully be soon.
Yeah.
But we'll see. Anyway, your turn.
Ask a question.
How do you think how you were raised affects you today?
I mean, it depends on what you're talking about.
Your ideals, your trusting of other people, your reliance on people being there, that kind of stuff.
Okay, so I was raised more of respect is earned and not given. I was taught you don't just trust, but you do help. That was always my thing. My mom taught me that as well. My mom was always, I played soccer for many years. That was the only sport I actually did love. And there was times that, I mean, the main one would be we went travel. I was on a pretty good team. We went and got some food after. I got a good amount. I was hungry. And there was a homeless person at the very end of the drive-thru. And I told my mom, stop the car. I grabbed my box of food, took it to the person, gave it to him. Asked if they wanted my drink. They said no. I said, okay, have a good one. And then I went back in my car, or my mom's car, and she was teary-eyed. And I didn't really understand why, but I get why. Like, being a little bit older now, I totally get it. Yeah. But it's like, you always do that. Like, if you're fortunate enough to be okay and you can do something like that, you do it. It's pretty simple. I've done that with you, and you've seen it. But it's just one of those things that, like, I will always help. I will give you the shirt off my back, always. Even if I don't know you, I will try.
Even if it may not fit.
Yeah, no matter what, I'm going to try to help you. But if there's any reason after that not to trust you or help you again, I won't. If you give me a reason, I will not. You have to earn it again.
I haven't given you a reason, right?
No. But my thing is always going to be that. Mine's always going to be respect and stuff like that. So even when I lived at like my grandparents' house by myself, there were certain people I'd invite over for watching wrestling and watching football and stuff like that. Cards Against Humanity night, like you said. Like, there was certain times we did that, but it was a very small group of people that I was hanging out with a lot at that time, and I always made sure to invite them. But then there was other times I'm like, okay, I'm going to go do this with somebody else. I'm going to go do this with somebody else. But I never really tried to make more friends. There was never times, and I know that's, again, very sheltered childhood. Like we said, I went to 2 schools, grew up with the same people, so I already had a group of friends that I had, and I didn't need more. So I guess how I was raised from my parents were more help out when you can help out. My grandma was very blunt with a lot of stuff. There was times that she'd be nice to somebody, they would leave, and then she'd talk her stuff about them. Yeah. But, that was my grandma. But I'm sort of the same way on that. Like, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say it. But if you need to speak up, speak up. So it's sort of, again, two-edged sword, because there's times that you shouldn't talk, and then there's times that you should. And when you do, it may not be nice, but sometimes somebody needs to hear that. Yeah.
It's the whole adage of, at least when I was being raised, if you have nothing nice to say, don't say anything.
That's what I said.
I know, but
again,
I'm summing it up.
Yeah, because again, you can say something if it's not nice, if it needs to be told. Yeah. Like, that's the thing. And like, even if it's mean, sometimes it is helpful. And so I do make sure to say it because it is helpful. It's not just to say it to be mean. Granted, there are times that I judge people for no reason, but it's not in real life kind of thing. It's more of a movie and TV and stuff like that. Yeah. So it's like, I'm not really judging somebody. I'm just making fun of what I'm seeing on a movie. But yeah, no, being raised how I was raised, it was very sheltered, this is very close. You make a friends group small. You don't need anything big. I'd much rather have 5 friends that I actually trust and respect and love than 100 friends that I don't know that well.
Yeah, the 100 friends that you barely even talk to. Like people talking about, oh, I have 10,000 Twitter followers or 500 friends on Facebook.
I don't care about any of that whatsoever.
It's like, okay, but how many of them do you talk to?
Yeah.
Do you talk to all 500?
I just don't care about that stuff. Mine, it's social media is one thing I really do not like, and that's just a whole different topic we will get into.
Yeah,
but
same here.
The family, siblings, and stuff like that, my brother, 10 years older than me, he taught me a lot. My sister, being a year older than me, she taught me a good amount. My parents, of course, they're parents. They teach you everything. My grandparents, they teach you everything. So I have a little bit of a trait from everybody. I'm loud and obnoxious like my mom, but I can stand my ground and be
you said it, not me.
Be quiet, but know what I'm
Sorry.
going to do next, like my dad. And then same thing with my grandpa. My dad and my grandpa are spitting images of how they were.
Yeah.
You do everything for your family. That's it.
Yeah.
Everything you do is for your family. And so they taught me that very early and very quick. My grandma taught me love. My mom taught me love. My other grandma taught me love. My sister taught me love. My brother taught me respect and love. So I thank all of them for teaching me what I know today for sure. If I didn't have my sister and my brother, I wouldn't know what I'd be doing.
Yeah.
Like they've helped me out a lot. Like when I was younger, because my brother was 10 years older, it is hard to be close because he can go drive and go do something and I have to stay home and do homework because I'm in the 3rd grade.
Yeah.
And so you can't really be that close, but if I ever fell down, he would pick me up. When I was younger, I couldn't really talk. I had a speech impediment, and there's videos of me trying to say something, and I don't even know what I was trying to say watching it. And my sister would be like, oh, he's saying this.
Yeah.
And so she was always my voice when I never had a voice. And I've always seen her that way, even to this day. She's always made sure that if I need to be heard, you're going to hear me. And so, again, I thank her and I love her for that. So I know you have a sister.
Yeah.
I've known her a pretty long time as well.
Yep. About the same amount of time as you've known me.
Yep. What do you think she's taught you?
Now or back then?
Both.
Back then, she basically didn't really hang out with me all that much. It wasn't a very close relationship like you and your sister had.
Yeah.
It was always, I'm hanging out with my friends, you have yours, just go, be gone. Like, yeah. Go.
Well, I mean, even with that, my sister, like, we were close, but it was also my mom sometimes forcing us.
Yeah.
So it was also that as well.
Anytime my mom forced us to do something, we would fight.
Yeah, no, we just, again.
That was back then. Now, we'll go have lunch together, we got tattoos together. I've got my tattoo with my sister and my dad. But we're more understanding, more laid back now, and we see more eye to eye versus she's the older sister and I'm the younger brother, even though that's what we are. Since I was younger, my relationship with my sister has greatly been improved.
Yeah.
And she's family. I love her.
Yeah.
We talk every once in a while. I saw her tonight, and she was telling us about work, how everything's going over there. Getting back on point, the mental stability that she provided me when I was younger was pretty great, because when I was growing up, my dad wasn't around.
Yeah.
I've mentioned that before. He didn't die. He was just locked up. Yes, we would fight, but whenever she saw me crying or saw that I needed something, like when I was an infant, she was like 1 or 2, or when I was like 1 or 2 and she was 2 or 3, she would always go up to my mom and tell her, the baby's crying.
Mm-hmm.
And then my mom would come over and do what she needed to do. I love my sister. She's wonderful. Back when we were younger, we were more at each other's throats. And mentally, it was all right. I understood that family comes first. You always need to care for them. It was just the fact that we never saw eye to eye back then.
Yeah. I mean, you guys were almost just competitive then at that point.
Yeah. I think that's normal, mostly.
I was like, maybe. I'm not really sure, because me and my sister were different on stuff like that. Like, she was good at school. I was good at sports.
Yeah.
And so it was like, I never tried to compete with her on school, because I knew she is way smarter than me. Like, there's no question about that. But if it was sports, I was going to beat her. But then it was the same thing with my brother. If I tried to compare myself to my brother in sports, he's gotten me on everything.
Yeah.
My brother's smarter, stronger. Like, he's a role model for sure. Like, he is very strong on his feet. He knows who he is. Like, I look up to my brother a lot.
Yeah.
Like, it's the same thing. Like, my dad wasn't locked up, anything like that, but he wasn't around because of how much he worked. He was working a lot of hours, and he had a lot of stuff to do. So I didn't see him as much. So it was my grandpa and my brother that were more of my male role models. And my brother has always been the strongest for me. Like, even if we weren't that close, I was always able to see him and just go like, damn, like that's who I should be. That's who I should be like.
That's something similar that happened with me and my sister. You know her. Mm-hmm. She has absolutely no filter.
At all.
And I wish I was like that. She is exactly like my dad. I'm more like my mom. I'm more analytical, whereas my sister is loud, boisterous, speaking her mind all the time. And I do remember a few times at a young age she tried to get me to do the same thing. Mm-hmm. But it was because I was raised by mom, grandma, and grandpa mm-hmm. that I was more, okay, that's cool sometimes, but I need to keep it mostly right here. I need to keep myself in check so I don't say anything to offend or hurt anybody. Now, it's a little bit past that.
Yeah, you're a little bit different now.
Yeah, but that everything changes with time.
Yeah, always. You grow up.
Yeah.
You learn about yourself more.
Yeah, but with my sister, it's tough to put into words mm-hmm. because she's her.
She's her. Yeah, I know what you mean. I know what you mean.
It's tough to quantify into words because you were saying your sister was book smart versus you were like sports. Mm-hmm. My sister focused mostly on like the things that she liked, which was animals, and I focused on the stuff that I like, which is science. I focused on science, music, sometimes English when I would pay attention. That's where we separated. When we were going through elementary and junior high school, it was mostly the same. Around high school, when we were actually at the same school at the same time, she went off and did her thing. I went off and did my thing, and that's where the separation started. And that's where we actually started to get level heads. But anyway, I'm rambling.
You're good. You're good. I was going to say, I'm going to throw some questions out and just see where your mind's based and see if anything pops up.
Okay.
So
let's do it.
I'm going to do siblings because that's going to be the better topic than family on the parents aspect of it. So with your sister, I'd known her as well. And one reason me and her got along is because we're both pretty blunt on stuff.
Yeah.
But with that being said, was there ever times that you needed to have her back because of how blunt she was?
That goes back to the fact that we didn't really hang out as much.
Yeah.
I did.
That's what I'm saying. It can bring something up.
Yeah. And it just reminded me, when the short answer, yes. Mm-hmm. The long answer involves a story. A short story.
Good.
I don't remember the whole context. All I know is that there was some guy and he was messing with my sister. And I was maybe 5 or 6, I want to say. Somewhere around that age. Mm-hmm. But he was messing with her. Or no, it was older than that. Because I was more than likely like 9 or 10. Because she was either just starting or
she was preteen or just starting to be a teenager.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was around that time. He was messing with her. I didn't like it. And we were all hanging out in the kitchen. I apparently went over to the kitchen sink, grabbed a fork, and I stabbed the dude.
Uh-huh.
You don't have to do that. He was messing with my family, and I felt the need to protect her. I felt the need to have her back. So I did what... Again, I have no idea what happened. This is a story I've been told about me. I guess I blacked out, grabbed the fork, and just ran over and stabbed him in the leg. And he yelled in pain, of course, and called me multiple names, and then just left the house and never saw him again. Because who wants to hang out with someone whose brother stabs people when they're mad at him?
Yeah. I agree with him. I would not show back up.
You have nothing to worry about.
I mean, we'll see. Okay. So defending her. We got that. So have you ever seen your sister go through heartbreak?
Yes. Yes, I have.
Where have you been for her for that?
I did my best to be a shoulder for her to cry on, an ear to listen to her, and trying to tell her like everything's going to be okay. Because the main thing that pops into my mind when you bring that up is she was in FFA going through high school.
Future Farmers of America.
Yeah. And we are one of the few schools in our area that still offer that.
Yep.
But when she first started, she got a cow. A calf, I should say. And through all of her time in high school, she raised that calf. It was basically her pet.
Yep.
But it grew to be so much more. Like, she would spend all of her extra time at the farm just hanging out with her, making the cow feel comfortable at home and all that stuff. And then when her senior year came around, she had to sell her. It's a normal thing for us because her and I did a pig as well. Like, we raised a piglet to a pig and then took him to auction to sell. But this auction wasn't for butcher. This auction was for calf rearing and milk.
And just to put into a little bit of context, in case you don't know what the FFA is, like we said, it's Future Farmers of America. And at the end of the year, normally for us, you would go to an auction and you would sell for either butcher or for, like you said, milking purposes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it wasn't that you were buying an animal and you were going to keep it or anything like that. You knew at the end that you were going to sell it. This isn't just coming out of nowhere or anything like that. This is how the program works. And I just wanted to make sure you guys understood. Like the Future Farmers of America, we care for the animals, we do all that. But at the end, it goes to auction, highest bidder. You paid for the animal at the school year. Whatever the animal gets, you get back. So it's a full thing. It's also a good investment. It teaches you pretty well. But continue.
Yeah. Through her time with the cow that she had, she grew attached to it, as anybody would if you're taking care of something for 4+ years.
Yeah.
Eventually, when she did sell it, she was destroyed because she was thinking she'd never be able to see her again, and just ruined her. Well, I'm not going to say ruined her. It brought her down.
Yeah.
And I did my best to be there and tell her everything's going to be okay and all that stuff. But she eventually learned where the cow was being kept, and she would go visit on occasion. I don't know if she still does now, if the cow's still around. But from what I understand, the cow did rear calves. So a piece of the cow that my sister raised is still out there.
Yeah.
And still on this earth,
okay.
which is a really cool thing to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's one of the times I would like to say that I was there for her.
Have you ever seen her like in a relationship, and how did you help her out in that?
For the relationship one, I didn't really see her in many relationships, except for the final one. She's married now to my brother-in-law. But beyond that, it's not that I don't know or I don't think she was. It's I don't remember.
Yeah.
I have memory issues. Like, not on a clinical level. It's just I'm dumb. So, don't look at me like that.
I don't have to say anything. Go ahead.
I know. I'm my own joke. I make fun of myself because I hate me. We're working on it. Anyway, I have memory issues, so most of the stories that I know about myself, I've been told.
Yeah.
But
I'm saying even like the one now with her husband, when you met him, and he, like, was there any times that you went to her and was just like, I like just been there for her for it, or anything like that?
I don't think I needed to be.
Yeah.
I think her husband provided her with everything she needed.
Okay.
Like, he and I are on good terms now. We actually work together. And he's a really cool guy. He's stable. He's a little monotone, but that's fine.
Yeah.
Some
part
people
of the family now.
Yeah, he's family. Long story short, I don't feel I needed to be there for her because he's there for her now.
Yeah.
When she needs me, she's more than welcome to call me at any time, and I will be there for her in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's just how I am.
Okay. Any questions? You good?
I'm not very creative.
You're good.
So, no. Unless you want to answer the same questions that you gave me.
I already forgot what I asked you.
You were asking me about my relationship with my sister, mostly.
Yeah. So, brother and sister for me. I have two siblings. Brother, I've seen in a couple relationships. I haven't really... Again, him being so much older, I wasn't really part of it. Sister only being a year and a half older, I was more involved with her relationships because we were growing up at the same time together. So I met a lot of her boyfriends when they dated, ex-boyfriends, stuff like that. And then even her husband now, also married, great guy, all that stuff. So I was always there for her for stuff like that. There was times that she came into my room just crying because a boyfriend broke up with her, and I'm just hugging her and telling her she's going to be okay. Do you need me to do anything? Just all that same stuff. And the whole time she's going, you're the baby brother. You're not supposed to be taking care of me. But that's how I was raised.
Yeah, it
always
doesn't matter
take
if you're
care
older.
of family. It just doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter if you're the eldest or the youngest. You're going to take care of family.
Yeah. Like I was always babied. I was the baby. I was always babied, especially by my mom. Like I was born 2 months early, premature. It was basically we both die or one of us die or somehow we both make it. We both made it. So it was, she said, traumatizing to her for that. So she always babied me. So even times that I messed up, I never got as much trouble as my other two siblings. That's for sure. But also how I am, why I am. But with my sister, it was that. My brother, I've seen him in a couple relationships. Again, back then, not that many. I remember a couple, maybe, like one around the corner and stuff like that, but nothing too vivid. His latest one I know, because again, we're a little bit older now. We can hang out now. We can do whatever together. So, we did a bowling league together and all that stuff. So I was there. But again, I was always, for my sister more, I always took care of her when I could because, again, that's how I was raised by my dad and my grandpa.
Yeah. That was good.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know where else I asked. But yeah, no, like I said, I'd always take care of my sister. She always took care of me. So
yeah.
There's never going to be a time. Same thing. If she calls me and said she needs me, she's out of state, and I'd drive to the state if she really needed it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and as for my sister, I may not remember times I was there for her. I don't want to say I don't remember any of the times she was there for me because I do know that she has been there, especially when animals have passed away and all that stuff. She was always there to give me a shoulder or an ear to listen and basically just let my emotions out because she knows how I was when I was growing up. And I wasn't in a good spot mentally growing up. We'll get into that on a later episode, but long story short, I tried to take that long-term solution multiple times.
I think we'll go into that in a different one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I said, we'll touch on it on another time.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to say that's where I was. But anyway, she was there for me after that 100%. And I cannot thank her enough for that. I love her to death, and yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. I was like, ours, I mean, me and my brother are both, if we go through a dark phase or anything like that, we turn it to joke right off the bat. It's really hard for something to affect us like that. For my sister, I'm not really sure because I've never really heard or seen her go through that tough of a time. Like, I'm not really sure if she's like, as you know, my brother was in Vegas when the shooting happened. So when he came home, like when it first happened, I was on my way to a casino with two of my other friends that I call my brothers. And we were on the way to the casino and my mom texted me and she was like, have you heard from, and I was like, no. And she was like, well, and I was like, okay, he's in Vegas. He's okay. And she's like, have you looked at the news? And I was like, No, he's at a, what? Look up the news. Okay, Route 66 or whatever it was, the 91, whatever that concert was.
Yeah.
Looked it up. Mass shooting. Oh. Have you heard from him? No. Oh. Now my heart's just beating.
Yeah. The adrenaline kicks in.
I didn't know what to do. I was freaking out in the back of the seat, and, both my other friends, my brothers, was just, are you okay? And I'm like, I don't know. This is the first time that something like that could happen. Like, I've lost grandparents, stuff like that, but not somebody younger like that, and not somebody that's my brother. And I just didn't know what to do. And then I got a text a couple hours later from my mom. He's okay. He's safe. But in that little bit of time, it was really hard to think about that and not having my brother anymore or anything like that. Like, it did scare me. Like, it was traumatizing to a certain extent, but nothing like actually being there, which I was supposed to be, but thankfully I didn't. And then when he came back home, me and him worked together for a good amount of years. And it would just, we'd be at work. Hey, can you do this? And he'd just make a joke about it. And it, some people, it rubs them the wrong way.
Yeah.
But for other people, that's how you cope with it. It's a lot easier to joke about it.
Because that's exactly what it is. It's a coping mechanism.
Yeah, it's a recovery process for it, for sure.
Yeah.
But then, there are times that somebody would be like, hey, have you seen this video? And he's like, I don't want to see. I was there. I don't need to see the video. And I'm like, true.
Yeah.
There are plenty of times I understand that. So it's the same way. Like, there's, again, stuff we'll talk about in the future. But there are times that I went through stuff and I needed them, and without them even knowing they were there for me. So it's again, nice to have family like that. So I think everything they taught me and everything my grandparents and parents taught me, it showed me how to stay strong for when they needed it and how to ask for help when I needed it. So I think it worked out pretty perfect. But
good.
I think it's about time for an AI story. We switched it up a little bit this week. It's still AI. It's still generated. It's still a website we do not own and we just use. I wish I could say we owned it, but we do not.
If we did, we'd be making a lot of money.
Who knows? But with that, we switched some things around. It's going to stay more on topic. The story is going to be more philosophy than story. And we try to hope that it stays on topic, but again, it's AI generated. We don't get a say.
Yeah.
It does 400 characters. It says what it wants to say. So with that being done, you want to read the first half?
Yep. You tell me when to stop.
If I tell you to stop. But
okay.
Here we go.
This is sight reading. So the prompt that was entered was, when I was growing up, my parents taught me the difference between right and wrong. This is where the AI takes over. They also taught me that there's no such thing as a free lunch. If you want something bad enough, it will cost you in time or money. The lesson stuck with me all through high school and college. It's what made me so angry when I got to Harvard Law School. There were plenty of things for sale on campus. Drugs, sex, alcohol, gambling, even murder if you knew where to look. But not much else. No food stamps, no welfare checks, nothing but debt-based credit cards. And yet somehow they managed to get their kids hooked on cocaine and heroin. So I decided to do some research into the economics of addiction. I found out how expensive everything was. Cocaine costs $500 an ounce. Heroin runs about $1,000 per shot. A gram of cocaine can be worth more than $100, while a gram of heroin goes for almost $200. Add another $50 for transportation and distribution. That means that each hit of coke or smack costs at least $300. And yet somehow, the students managed to get by without any real problem at all. Why? Because they learned it from their parents, how to make hard choices. When faced with an opportunity to buy something bad, they would ask themselves, is it worth it? Then they'd say no. Or rather, they wouldn't do anything until they could answer that question honestly. I never thought about these lessons again after law school. My job took me into the world of politics and finance. As a result, I spent most of my adult life making decisions based on incomplete information. I have always assumed that others are doing likewise. In fact, however, I discovered that people often don't think very clearly about their own behavior. Instead, they assume that everyone else is just like them. Even worse, they assume that other people know better than they do. This leads to poor decision making because we tend to overestimate our ability to predict what other people will do. We assume that they'll act rationally, yet studies show that people rarely take action unless they believe it's likely to work out well for them personally. In short, people are prone to self-serving bias. They're too optimistic about their own abilities and pessimistic about those of others. Worse still, they assume that everyone else shares their tendency towards optimism. Thus, when confronted with a choice between two alternatives, they choose the one that seems best to them. They ignore the possibility that someone might actually prefer the alternative that looks less favorable. For example, suppose you have a friend who wants to go skiing next week. You tell him that he has to come along or risk losing your friendship forever. He says, "No way, I'm going to stay home and watch TV." What do? Do you accept his decision or try and change it? Most people would probably opt for changing it. After all, if he really wanted to spend time watching television, why didn't he say so before you made the offer? But here's the rub. Your friend may not realize that he doesn't want to ski. Maybe he thinks that staying home and watching TV sounds good to him. Perhaps he assumes that you won't mind having a friend who watches TV instead of going skiing. Or maybe he simply likes spending time with you. Either way, he's unlikely to admit that he prefers to stay at home. So since he hasn't told you otherwise, you assume that he wants to go skiing. But if he does want to stay home, would you feel guilty for offering or to go skiing, only to discover later that he preferred to stay at home? Probably not. You'd assume that he changed his mind and that now he wants to go skiing. The same kind of thing occurs when people decide whether to vote or not. Politicians frequently claim that voters are motivated by greed. They point out to the millions of dollars spent on political campaigns as proof. Of course, politicians aren't stupid. They know that many people don't care about politics. Rather, they assume that most people share their own concerns. So when faced with a choice between voting for one candidate over another, they assume that the vast majority of people will vote for the candidate that seems more likely to win, since both candidates are equally likely to lose. They assume that most people will vote for whichever one looks better.
This assumption makes sense. After all, if people weren't willing to pay attention to politics, then nobody would bother to vote. Yet, it turns out that people are far more interested in sports than politics. Only about 30% of Americans vote regularly, compared to the nearly 90% who follow professional football or basketball. Furthermore, polls consistently show that most people prefer to watch a game over reading about it. Why is this true? Well, it's partly because we assume that everyone else shares our preferences. But there's another reason. People assume that others will vote for the team that appears to be winning. That's why fans cheer loudly when their favorite player scores a touchdown. It's also why they boo when their teams lose. Fans assume that players would do whatever it takes to help their team win. That's why they expect star players to play hard every game. And it's also why they assume that coaches will put their players in position to succeed. Of course, sometimes people do cheat. Sometimes they lie, and occasionally they even break the law. But generally speaking, people assume that others will behave in ways consistent with their own interests. That's why they assume that others will vote for the candidate that seems to be winning, and that's why they also assume that they will support policies that benefit them personally. And there within lies the paradox of altruism. On one hand, people assume that others will be honest, yet they also assume that others will be selfish. And that's why they assume that everyone else knows better than they do. But in short, people assume that everyone is just like them.
I really like that one.
I don't know how it gets to where it ends, but I love that it does. Because honestly, just looking at it saying like your parents trying to teach you right and wrong.
Yeah.
but then also seeing it from the point of view of understanding what is right and wrong.
Yeah. What people perceive as right and wrong.
Exactly.
Because some people perceive it differently. Depending on how you're raised, you may see breaking into a car as not so bad versus I see it as really bad.
Yeah.
So it all depends on your upbringing.
Yeah. But again, we read the story and we want to hear what you think. Does it bring up anything? Does it make you think of anyone? Honestly, for me, it makes me just think of right and wrong, and it makes me think of, for this story especially, it makes me think of my dad.
Yeah.
So there is a lot on that I look at, and I'm like, yeah, that's what he taught me. A lot of the stuff on there is what he taught me. There is right, there is wrong, there is everything like that. So we just have to figure out what it is. Again, we didn't go too far into the mental stuff today. To a certain extent we did, but nothing crazy. Because there's going to be podcasts like this where we want to talk about family, friends, and stuff like that as well.
Yeah. Just talking about what comes to mind.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's a good outlet. Sometimes it brings you back to a center point. It brings you in, lets you focus, and conglomerate your ideas so you can focus better on mentally recovering in whatever way you need to.
Yeah. Just when I look at today's podcast, it's going to be more of seeing that you have family, seeing that they love you, seeing that you love them, and understanding even if they weren't there, there is a recovery process for that. There's not a time I look at my dad working so much that I hate him. But when I was younger, it was hard to be close to him. And it was a recovery process to get close how we are today. And I thank God that I have that with him now. But I hope you guys enjoyed it. We hope to see you next week. Other than that, find us anywhere you can. We're here to help. We're here to talk. And like always, I'm going to say it. We love you. We're proud of you. You are enough. But I'll see you guys next week.
Have a good night, everybody.